Good morning, everyone. She is in charge of holding state leaders accountable, and now she will answer our question. The state auditor, Diana DiZoglio, is here in the chair. It's time to go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to On the Record. Summer is quickly approaching. We're past Memorial Day, so here we go. June is here. I'm Ed Harding.
And I'm Sharman Sacchetti. And joining us today is State Auditor Diana DiZoglio. She has previously served in both the State Senate and the House. DiZoglio is a Wellesley College graduate, and she lives in Methuen. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me back again. It's always great to be here.
Thanks for being here. So let's talk about the 600-pound gorilla in the room. House and Senate leaders have refused to cooperate with the law giving you the power to audit the legislature. 72% of voters wanted it. You have pushed for Attorney General Andrea Campbell to enforce it. In March, Andrea Campbell came on this very show and she told us she is waiting for your office to give her more information. So before we start, listen to what the AG said.
The auditor, she's saying publicly she's giving us that information. She has not. And so I'm going to correct the record. I need the auditor to tell me and my team what's the legal strategy, what's the legal basis, what's the scope of her audit. And then we bring that to court. But until we have that, we go into court, we will be laughed out of court.
You heard her words, laughed out of court. So have you brought that information to her?
There is over 150 pages of correspondence actually between my office and the Attorney General's office that demonstrates that my office has repeatedly let the Attorney General know exactly what we would like to audit. And we have said that we would like to audit the financial documents of the House and the Senate and state contracting documents. Those are the only things that we have requested at this time period, and we have simply asked the Attorney General for help. She continues to say that she needs more information before she's willing to say that the House and Senate leaders should turn over those documents. And the fear is, Ed, that the Attorney General is going to continue to defend legislative leaders the same way that she did before we had to bring this issue to the ballot. The only reason why we had to bring this issue to the ballot is because of the Attorney General's defense of the legislature previously stating that she previously didn't think that they needed to be audited. So that's why we brought it to the ballot. We asked the voters to decide, and we said, please vote for this. Vote for question one. And the voters voted by 72% of the vote. And now we're simply trying to make sure that the law is enforced. But we can't do that without the AG's office.
When you heard her say what she just said, your immediate reaction is, you've got that information, or we're stalling here, or whatever. What is your immediate reaction?
Yeah, look, it's very disappointing, but it's nothing new up on Beacon Hill. A lot of people are friends up on Beacon Hill. The Attorney General has very strong relationships with the Speaker and the Senate President. She gets her budget from the Speaker and Senate President. And, you know, we see this type of behavior quite often up on Beacon Hill where, you know, excuses are made and things are not done according to what the will of the voters is. But I do view this as a threat to democracy. You know, I mean, we talk about threats to the democracy up, you know, when we talk about things at the federal level. You know, I'm talking about things at the state level right now when we look at 72% of the Commonwealth voting for an issue on the ballot, but state leaders ignoring the will of the voters. Again, to the tune of 72%, people called for increased transparency, accountability, accessibility through a simple audit. Now, most of the documents, actually all of the documents that we've requested up to this point are matters of public record in every other state entity that actually abides by the public records law. But since the legislature also exempts themselves from the public records law, we can't get access to these very basic documents. So we are still asking the Attorney General to enforce the law.
So
she appears unwilling.
I'm going to jump in here.
Sure.
I do have to ask, because it sounds like, you know, she gets the budget. Her budget is funded by legislative leaders. Are you saying she's sort of covering for them?
You know, I think that the Attorney General has a duty and a responsibility to the 72% of voters who voted for this matter to enforce the law. This is the law. This is not a non-binding question. When we vote for something,
right now,
it's the
things
law.
are kind of in this limbo.
Things are in this
What do you
limbo.
tell people who voted for this?
Please call the Attorney General. Please ask her to enforce the law. She's the only one who can. She's our chief law enforcement agent. And if she remains unwilling to enforce the law, we are calling on the Attorney General to promptly allow us to secure our own special assistant attorney general of our choosing so that we can be appropriately represented in court. If she feels there's a conflict or she is somehow unwilling or unable to enforce this law, she needs to make that clear so that we can get this job done on behalf of the voters.
So that's your next move, right?
Yes. Yes, we are asking the Attorney General to make clear if she is unwilling to do this, then we need to get our own attorney so we can get the law enforced.
All right, I want to ask you about the emergency shelter system. You recently performed an audit there. You found some disturbing problems in that audit: improper, unlawful no-bid contracts, mismanagement, the state overpaying for services. The audit also found the length of time for some of the no-bid contracts, quote, excessive. What should have been done here in the face of a surge of migrant families to Massachusetts?
Yeah, so obviously we are in a humanitarian crisis right now, and this isn't just happening here in Massachusetts, it's happening across the nation. And, you know, Massachusetts, like other states, has had a challenging time in navigating the complexities associated with making sure that we are addressing this humanitarian crisis. These audits in the Office of State Auditor exist to help make government work better. They do not exist just to point to flaws and say, you're welcome, see you later, have a nice day. They exist in order to look at past practices and identify areas where improvements need to be made to assist these agencies and the administration to do better moving forward by learning what could have been done better. So we did identify some areas in the state contracting process that needed to be done better. The administration, namely the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, had given out no bid contracts for months at a time. Our office did.
You said that was way too long.
That was way too long. These contracts, if they're given out,
defended,
should have been
though.
several weeks.
Yeah, the governor defended her administration. She actually sent out the Secretary of Housing and Livable Communities to sort of defend the administration, saying they inherited a broken system from the Baker administration. You made these recommendations in these audits. In audits, you make recommendations about changes that could be made. Given the pushback from the administration, do you think these recommendations are going to be adopted?
I certainly hope so. I was disappointed when the governor when she was asked if she was going to, take a look at some of the recommendations and implement some of them. I believe her response was, I doubt it. So that was a little disappointing. I am hopeful that the governor and I will be able to have a conversation about some of the areas where we do believe that there are improvements that can be made. The no-bid contracting process is something that, we believe was inappropriately used here under this administration. For contracts in the millions of dollars that were given out to private vendors where there was inflated pricing. Mercedes Cab, Pilgrim Transit, got this pretty lucrative no-bid contract for several months that, we saw gave out, $150, ish base pay for, somebody to get picked up for a ride. There was a $5,000 bus ride that was given out. There was about $5,000 worth of, transportations given to about 8 people who had some issues with disabilities, whereas the ride would have been about $50 for that. And we just did a comparative analysis and we showed how even investing in the MBTA or these regional transit authorities, which I've actually spoken to some of them, the one in the Merrimack Valley, for example, we spoke to them. They said, hey, we drive right by some of these shelters. We are happy to provide some services at a much lower rate, but they do need to be contacted by the administration in order to, be able to provide those services.
Let's talk about optics. The day before that audit was released, the governor announced the day before that she released the audit, the governor announced that all hotel and motel shelters would close this summer. Then we saw her office take a similar tact early this year when you released an audit on non-disclosure agreements all across state government. So one day before that audit came out, she released a written policy formally banning non-disclosures. Presented 2 examples. Do you see a pattern in the 2 examples?
With those 2 examples, yes, it is something that, we've talked about in my office and that I look forward to speaking to the administration about. But I think, more so, Ed, what it points to is that the administration is paying attention to these audits and they are taking action based on, certain things that they see in these audits from time to time in these cases. So, regarding the prior question, Charmin, about whether or not the governor plans to, according to her own statements, take action on some of these items, the actions that were taken leading up to the release of this report suggest something a bit different, right? So I do think that we need to have some conversations, open up the lines of communications, and make sure that we can.
Have those lines been open?
Well, I've actually been waiting on a return phone call from the governor for quite some time, and I do hope that she does see the value in speaking with me, in coordinating with our office, because again, we're not the FBI.
You're effectively in the same
we're
building.
auditors.
You walk or bump into each other or whatever. I mean, you don't have to wait for phone calls.
Well, we do see each other at public events, certainly, and of course, there is that professional relationship. But we do have some issues of concern that our office has uncovered in some of these audit reports that I do think warrant and merit additional, more in-depth conversations about how to address some of these challenges. Up on Beacon Hill, there is really it's sort of this, we talk about the elephant in the room. Up at the State House, a lot of people don't really talk to each other up at the State House. The Senate's fighting with the House quite often. The House is fighting with the Senate quite often. So I do think that lines of communication need to be opened up across the board. We all need to make sure that we're all talking to each other more often so that we can work together to address these challenges facing our communities.
The auditors in the chair were on the record this morning. Stay with us.